Hello there, good evening. Welcome to Look North on the programme tonight. The Chancellor sets out his new budget, but there's very little announced for our region. We're in Scarborough to find out what people there think.
Small people are having it hard at the moment, so we really did want a lot more from the government.
We'll have a full look at what's been announced and how it will affect you. Also tonight, the jury in the murder trial of PC Sharon Beshanivsky hears from an officer who said they'd have run away if they'd seen a gun, but they had no chance. Hitting the high notes, the Leeds-born sitar player making history at the Royal Philharmonic Awards. And we meet three generations of dog lovers from the same North Yorkshire family, all competing at Crufts.
It was a grey and a misty start to the day, and overall it's been quite a disappointing day, hasn't it? It's going to be cool to end the week. It's also going to be windy. I'll be back with all the details later in the programme.
Hello, good to have your company tonight. We're going to start the programme looking at the budget. The Chancellor today has set out his spending plans for the year ahead, and whilst many measures will affect people living here, there were very few specific mentions or money promised for Yorkshire and North Derbyshire. Let's take a look at some of the headlines. The amount of national insurance workers will pay has been cut by another 2 pence in the pound. So that means those on an average salary of, say, £35,000 will save £450 a year. But it's a much smaller saving for those on lower incomes. In a move to help those struggling to find affordable homes in tourist hotspots in areas like the Dales and along the coast, the Chancellor announced he's scrapping tax relief for holiday lets. And £30 million has been promised for culture projects at the British Library in Leeds, the National Railway Museum in York, and creating a National Poetry Centre in West Yorkshire. Our political editor, James Vincent, is in Westminster for us tonight. James, has it been a disappointing budget for people in our part of the world?
Well, that's to the eye of the beholder, Amy. Obviously, it's always a busy day on budget day here at Westminster. There's crews to the left and the right of me. There's always MPs looking for journalists, journalists looking for MPs. It's always a busy day because it's normally just the day when the Chancellor tells you exactly what he's going to do with your money. But everybody knows that there is a general election just round the corner. So we had that cut in national insurance. We've got some money for some key seats in Yorkshire. It's almost like they know there's a general election on the way, and those pieces are being put in place slowly and inevitably.
The budget is one of those set-piece days for a Chancellor. The night before photos of you working really hard, the cabinet meeting, the briefcase. It all happens within a space of about 100 yards in central London, while the rest of the country waits to find out what's in the box.
I commend this statement to the House.
Speech done. Time for the instant reaction.
You were in the chamber. What did you think?
Well, my reaction, and I think the reaction of a lot of people back home will be, is that it?
Well, I think it's a very good budget, a budget that rewards hard-working people. It's a good tax cut for people.
The reality is, for people in Barnsley, they are worse off today than they were 14 years ago.
Back to them in a sec, but also a chance to question one of the ministers who drew up the budget.
The average earner will be about £900 better off as a result of today.
You talk about the average earner. Obviously, that's the average for the UK. In Yorkshire, we're £3,000–4,000 behind that average, and if you're earning a low wage, that cut in national insurance isn't actually maybe going to cost you more because you might be pushed into paying more tax. How do you explain that?
Well, everybody's going to benefit from this national insurance contribution cut today, because if they're in work, they will receive a cut.
Well, I was elated because Bingley got £14.5 million for a new swimming pool and improvements to the Market Square, something I've been lobbying for months and months and months.
And the big question, when's the general election?
Well, if you know, can you tell me, please? I'm really not sure. All I know is we're ready to go.
When's the general election? I mean, we saw it was going to be an election budget. When's the election?
Well, I mean, I don't see this election budget at all. I presume the election is going to be October, November, December this year.
When is it going to be?
Well, I think possibly May the 2nd. I think the point is they've run out of ideas, they've run out of steam.
If the Prime Minister decides not to have one in May, it'll be the most expensive political bottle job in British political history.
And that is the challenge then that Labour are laying down for the Conservatives. We had alcohol duty frozen, fuel duty frozen as well. Obviously the Shipley MP Philip Davis very happy with money for a new leisure centre in Bingley. The Conservative MPs I've spoken to today seem to be pretty happy with what Jeremy Hunt said in terms of them trying to keep their seats. But they're not the ones that Jeremy Hunt and Rishi Sunak need to convince. It's the voters. So Spencer has been out with them today.
There's an election coming and the Chancellor is turning on the spending tap. National insurance down, child benefit up. But the giveaways have to come from somewhere and owners of holiday properties are being asked to pay more tax. Currently, furnishings and equipment like this hot tub are tax deductible, meaning there's less tax on Jim's profits at his Scarborough property. After today's budget, that will change.
When we're replacing the furniture, what that used to be is that used to be directly tax deductible. With the removal of these tax breaks, what that means is that's just a direct cost of the business, and we've just got to fund that out of our own personal gains rather than anything that's deductible against the business.
The government has made the changes to encourage owners to switch to long-term tenancies, therefore boosting the number of rental properties in coastal and rural areas. Jim's not convinced it'll work.
It potentially will bring some properties back into the market, but it's not going to be a quick fix and it's not going to be a quick solution for anybody.
The Chancellor's big offer today is national insurance. Reducing the amount workers pay will mean someone on an average salary of £35,000 a year should have around £450 a year extra. But for low earners like Joe Makin from Selby, his take-home pay will barely change.
The last time they cut it back in the autumn, it took £20 a month. It gave me £20 a month back, essentially. I almost feel like I'd rather just give that back and just say, we'll go and spend it on the NHS then. That makes absolutely no difference to me. And I think I worked it out earlier that I'll get even less back this time. It'll be something like an extra £15 to £18 a month, something like that. So that's nothing, really.
The other big change is to child benefit. Parents who earn up to £60,000 a year will now be able to receive it in full from April. Previously, the limit was set at £50,000. A positive reaction from this dad at a soft play centre in Leeds.
Sounds brilliant because we're currently unable to claim the child benefit, so that pushes us into the bracket where we can then potentially claim that. So that's definitely helpful for us as a family.
Will the budget get the UK growing, Chancellor?
This might be the last budget before the election. The reaction from voters potentially influencing the Prime Minister's decision on when to set the date. Spencer Stokes, BBC Look North.
So that's what some of our voters think about what the Chancellor said today. What do our councils think? Because I think some of our councils thought there might be some extra help for them to get them out of what some find themselves in a budget black hole. But there wasn't much relief for councils today. The Household Support Fund, though, will be extended. That's worked through councils to help give people food and warm spaces. Well, let's get some reaction from our reporters across Yorkshire now, starting with Gemma Dillon in Leeds.
One of the things council leaders here were pushing for was an extension of the household support scheme. It means local authorities can help families with things like food banks and food vouchers, warm spaces, that sort of thing. Now, the Chancellor has extended that by 6 months, which has been welcomed. But we also know that our local authorities have faced some really tough financial decisions over the past few months, and that may yet continue as the Chancellor wants them to come up with productivity plans to make them more efficient.
Frankly, it'll come down to having services less frequent and less facilities open than we have at the moment. There's very little else that we can go for in local government given how much money has been taken away.
All councils in West Yorkshire have faced some really tough financial decisions as they've set the budget for the next financial year. And that continues tomorrow in Bradford as councillors there are discussing savings of £175 million over the next 5 years.
For City of York and North Yorkshire councils, the two main local authorities here, there's likely to be different reactions to the Chancellor's public sector productivity plan. Labour-led City of York, significant budget cuts this financial year and the next pointing the finger at Westminster and Conservative policies. Conservative-led North Yorkshire more measured in its language. Both councils will say they'll have to dig deep down the back of the sofa to find any further efficiencies for next year's budget. One senior Conservative North Yorkshire councillor saying balancing the books had given him sleepless nights.
Well, if you were listening closely to the Chancellor's budget today, you'll have realised there was nothing specifically in it for South Yorkshire. And I think it's fair to say the reaction that we've had from the Labour-run councils here and from the Mayor has been unimpressed. In fact, Mayor Oliver Coppard describing some of the measures announced today as a sticking plaster. Now, down the road in Sheffield, City councillors have been meeting there this afternoon to discuss their budget as well. Across the board in South Yorkshire, the scale of the financial challenge for the local authorities not as severe as we're seeing in some other parts of the region, but including here in Barnsley, they've all had to make cuts and they're all warning of rocky times ahead.
Well, that question still remains, doesn't it? When? When will the general election be? I've spoken to a fair few MPs today and you get a different answer from all of them. The Labour politicians desperate for it to be now. The Conservative politicians desperate for this budget to be well received by voters.
James, thank you. Next tonight, the trial of a man charged with the murder of PC Sharon Beshanivsky in Bradford has been hearing a statement from a police officer seriously injured in the shooting. PC Teresa Milburn said both officers would have run away if they'd seen a gun, but they had no chance. Our social affairs correspondent Emma Glasby was at Leeds Crown Court for us today.
PC Teresa Milburn, in her statement read by the prosecution, described walking towards Universal Express travel agents, hearing an almighty bang and then seeing her colleague, PC Sharon Beshanivsky, collapsing in front of her. She said she'd then heard another bang. She felt immense pain and she knew immediately that she had also been shot. PC Milburn said in her statement she saw a perfect round hole in her stab vest. Now, she said that both officers would have gone and would have run away if a gun had been waved in front of them, but that they were given no warning and they had no chance. She was told later in hospital that her colleague, PC Beshanivsky, had died from her injuries. Now, we also started hearing evidence today from a man called Francois Baron. The jury has already been told by the prosecution that he had spent the night before the robbery with some of the members of the gang. In his evidence today, he said that he'd been shown a machine gun, a pistol and some bullets that night, and he had been warned that he must never speak about it because his life would be in danger. He is expected to continue his evidence tomorrow. A 75-year-old Pirandita Khan is on trial here, accused of being the organiser of the robbery in which PC Beshanivsky was killed. He denies murder and his trial here in Leeds is continuing.
You're watching Wednesday's Look North, still to come on tonight's programme. 40 years on, we hear from a former miner who travelled all over the country to support colleagues on the picket line. A 39-year-old man from Leeds has appeared in court following the death of a woman in the city. 32-year-old Teresa Jordan's body was discovered in bushes next to an Asda store in Hare Hills in June 2022. Mark Andrew Metcalfe has been charged with her murder and preventing the lawful burial of a body. He's been remanded in custody. Firefighters have been tackling a blaze at a former care home in West Yorkshire. The fire started yesterday evening at the derelict St Ives nursing home in Bingley. Up to 50 firefighters were sent to the Grade 2 listed building, which is part of the historic St Ives Mansion estate. The fire has been put out and an investigation is underway into the cause. 3 men have been arrested after a fight involving machetes broke out following a car crash in Leeds. West Yorkshire Police say they were called to an incident at Gledhow Valley Road in the city after 10 o'clock last night. 2 24-year-olds and a 30-year-old were taken to hospital with non-life-threatening injuries and have since been arrested. Police are appealing for witnesses. Next this evening, this week we've been looking at how the effects of the miners' strike 40 years ago are still being felt in coalfield communities in Yorkshire. In Barnsley in 1984, Alex Matthewson was a 29-year-old flying picket. So that means he travelled all over the country to bolster support at striking pits and remembers violent clashes with police. Nicola Rees has his story.
It was like a war zone.
The horses came through, and I tell you this now, without a word of my life, I run for my life. All you could see is miners running up bankings over railway lines all over, and the police just hitting anybody, arresting anybody. My heart was in my mouth that day. Put some coal on, keep the fires burning. My name's Alexander Matthewson. I've been a miner for 46 years, and I was a flying picket for Arthur Scargill.
I think it'll always be in his blood. It's one of those old things that once a miner, always a miner. I'm Alex's wife. We're in Pogmore in Barnsley, and we've lived here for 22 years approximately.
I used to be that colour from top to bottom. I was 29 years of age when the strike started. There would be the ordinary pickets, the ordinary pit pickets there, and we were to make the masses stronger. So there'd be thousands of miners travelling up and down the motorways. I really enjoyed it. I thought I was doing something on behalf of the miners and the union. I got in with the masses, so I'd be shoving. So I'd be by the back of the police, shoving the police to try and stop the vehicles coming through. But as the strike went on, as soon as you started shoving, police started arresting or drawing the batons. I don't think our union really realised how bad things were getting. People were running out of fuel to keep even the house warm. And if you've got kids, which I hadn't, it was going to be a lot harder.
He would never ever have used the word scab. Everybody had gone a really, really long time, and people had got to desperation point. And I think Alex could see that, and he was just willing to let that pass by.
Can you hear them birdies singing, eh? We were asked to go to Orgreave. We travelled in the car, parked near. We could tell where the area was because there was cars and miners all over the place. It was like a war zone. Now, some of the lads behind us, when we saw them getting put in the vans, there were blood all over them, and there were no sympathy for them. There wasn't any, well, we'd take you in an ambulance first and let you be looked at by a paramedic. It was terrible. There you are. That's stopped for the day. It's 40 years since the strike, and I've still got friends that I know for a fact went back towards the end of the strike, and I've carried on being their friends. We never talk about it. The strike is a long time ago, and I would hope that the communities can do some healing. Everybody else has moved on. If we don't move on, we'll get left behind.
Let's have a little bit of music now, shall we? Leeds-born musician Jasdeep Singh Dagan is a multi-award-winning artist, best known for playing the sitar. Well, last night he made history and has become the first Indian classical musician to win the Royal Philharmonic Society Instrumentalist Award. He's here in the studio, but before we have a chat with him, let's hear some of him in action, shall we? Oh, it sounds so beautiful, doesn't it? Congratulations, Jasdeep. Have you come down to earth yet?
Yeah, I have, yeah.
Yeah, a good night?
Yeah, very, very good night, yeah. Absolutely brilliant. I'm gobsmacked. I didn't think I was going to win, and it's been, yeah, phenomenal.
So you had made history last night. You became the first sitar musician to win this award, but also the first Indian classical musician. Why has it taken so long?
Well, yeah, I mean, I don't think it's a matter of it being so long. I think it's the RPS, the Royal Philharmonic Society Awards, have been quite traditionally Western classical. So to have sitar in that mix is kind of, it's not really well known. So yeah, I think it's time for it to kind of come, but I'm very glad that it has done.
Yeah, you're breaking the mould. Do you hope that this will encourage others to come forward?
I hope so, yeah. I hope that it's opened the doors up to more Indian classical musicians being recognised on such a big platform. So yeah, I'm very, very happy.
It's a beautiful instrument. Now, to me, it looks and sounds like a cross between a guitar and a harp. How would you describe the music?
Well, sitar is good because what we do is we follow the voice. So it looks a bit like a guitar, and it does sound a bit like a guitar. But the thing with the instrument is that we pull the string, and that kind of mimics the voice really. So it gets a really, really unique sound.
So someone who plays the guitar, would they be able to play this?
Probably not.
No, totally different.
Yeah, I mean, I can't play guitar, so I can just about manage the sitar itself, but I can't play guitar.
So why do you have to sit down when you play the sitar?
So the sitar locks into your so it rests on your foot and then it rests on your leg, and then you push down on your arm here to kind of lock it in. So you must be seated to be able to play properly.
And and traditionally you have to play it sat on a rug on a platform as well. Presumably that's for cultural reasons, is it?
Yeah, so I think just to maintain the respect for the music tradition and the instruments itself, so we like to sit down on a clean rug and to be raised as well if you're playing with other musicians around as well.
And how popular is it?
Oh, sitar is really popular. Yeah, it's the most popular Indian instrument. And everyone knows sitar. If you're kind of going through the airports and you're carrying a big kind of shipped sitar thing, people always say, is that a sitar? And yeah. Or sometimes they say banjo, but I'm like, no, it's a sitar,
definitely
not a banjo.
not a banjo.
It's not a banjo.
Very briefly, what's next for you?
Well, yeah, so I'm performing all over. I'm playing in Cambridge tomorrow, and I have a couple of concerts in Newcastle, and I go to Leicester as well next week. So I'm just on the concert run at the moment.
Well, congratulations. Yeah. Enjoy the moment.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Now from one award to another, the world's biggest dog show, Crufts, starts tomorrow, and this year 3 generations of the same North Yorkshire family will be competing. Nicola Calvert from Brompton near Northallerton will be showing 10 dogs along with her daughter and 2 granddaughters. The youngest, who's just 8 years old, Phil Connell, has been to meet the family as they prepare for the biggest week of the year.
Good boy. For this North Yorkshire family, dogs are a way of life. A bug that's bitten not just Nicola Calvert, but her daughter and now her granddaughters too. Breeding and showing their beloved Welsh and English Springer Spaniels.
It's a bit like measles, it's very catching. It starts off as a little bit of a hobby and it takes over.
And what's it like for you to see the family following in your footsteps like this?
There have been quite a few moments over the last few years when it's been absolutely heart-bursting. Steady.
Wait.
Well done.
And this week, hearts will be bursting.
Good boy. Well done. That's it. Very good.
Crufts, the world's biggest dog show, starts in Birmingham, and this year 4 members of the family will be competing, including Catherine, Nicola's youngest granddaughter, who's just 8 years old.
It's very fun and quite exciting.
And what do you have to do to keep your dog under control and to keep the dog calm?
Probably just keep its lead up and don't go too fast.
And do you think you're as good as your grandma?
Yeah.
And Nicola's eldest granddaughter Elizabeth is competing too, showing her own dog Jessie, who's 10 months old.
She's not nervous or timid, which is good, but I think she'll be all right, yeah, because she's quite a happy dog, isn't she? She always wags her tail, so yeah.
And you've got your mum and your grandma watching
I do.
this week. What's that like, a help or a hindrance?
It's definitely a help, because, if anything goes wrong or if you want some reassurance, then they're there to help you. But it's also a help because, you've got people that there with you, so you don't feel lonely.
Bud.
So at Crufts this year, there's 3 generations of talent, all hoping that one of them will return to Yorkshire with the ultimate prize of Best in Show. Phil Connell, BBC Look North, Northallerton.
Gosh, it certainly is a family affair. 10 dogs, that's a lot to handle, isn't it?
Maybe that's where Paul is this week, with Dave the dog. Surely
Can
it's
you
Best in Show. All right, the weather deserves no awards today. It's been really quite unpleasant, hasn't it? I thought this summed it up brilliantly. What a good picture. A lone dog walker on a rather misty, cloudy, dank Scarborough beach. And a striking picture, but a lot of cloud. And this really has been the theme of the weather today. And temperatures have really struggled as well, only getting up to around 7 degrees. Keep your pictures coming in to the Weather Watchers page, of course, or you can send us them on social media, keeley.donovan. So we're going to continue with a similar theme with the weather, a lot of cloud, cool and windy, I think sums it up as we head through the next few days and through the weekend as well. Tomorrow, another grey start to the day. We'll hang on to a lot of cloud through the course of the day, but there should be some brighter skies, hopefully, by the afternoon, triggering 1 or 2 showers. So we've got low pressure out in the Atlantic. We've got high pressure over Scandinavia. It's keeping those weather systems at bay for now, but it is causing quite strong winds, so quite brisk southeasterly winds for Thursday, Friday and through the weekend as well, taking the edge off what are already quite disappointing temperatures. I think it'll be particularly cool along the coast. The radar picture doesn't tell a brilliant story because you can't see much on it, but actually it has been quite damp out there for a lot of the day. Patchy drizzle in places. Maybe as we head through this evening, we'll see the best breaks of the day heading up from the south. So some breaks in that cloud cover, but through the second half of the night, any breaks will tend to fill in. There'll be some mistiness, especially across the hills, and some of that cloud could be thick enough once again to squeeze out the odd spot or 2 of drizzle. Temperatures down to around 3 or 4 degrees. And I think we'll start to see the breeze picking up overnight as well. A quick look at the high water times then. In Whitby at 1:17 and then again at 1:34 in the afternoon. So a lot of cloud once again to start the day. There'll be some mist and murk out there. There'll also be the odd spot of drizzle. The odd shower continuing into the afternoon, but we should start to see some breaks in that cloud cover. The breeze is going to be quite gusty tomorrow, coming up from the southeast. So temperatures along the coast struggling in particular at 9 or 10 degrees inland. It'll be cooler still and windier still as we head through the day on Friday.
I'm just picturing Paul and Dave the dog in the pooch pamper parlour.
Yeah, who's pampering who though?
My guess is as good as yours. That's it from us. I'll be here on the late news tonight. I hope you join me then, 10:30. Bye-bye for now.